Hi, greetings from Morocco. First, I want to thank the organizer for inviting me to this course, and it is a real pleasure and honor for me to be among the faculties of this course and share with you my experience of hacks and tips and tricks in endourology. First, I have no disclosure to do. But before we start, I want to invite you to submit your works, your ideas to SANTO, which is a symposium on affordable new technologies in neurology, which is held the first day of SIU. And there is also a competition that called took for the best affordable new device. And I am the chairman of SANTO for this last few years. And I'll be happy to have someone, a few winner of a prize. Here are the photos or some of the winners of the previous years, and you will find the rules on the SIU website. So I was the head of the Department of Urology in the military hospital Meknes, Morocco. Meknes is a city in the center of Morocco. And we were promoting endourology and especially PCNL. We have done a revival in Morocco in the region of Meknes in the center of Morocco. And since 2011, I am doing almost full-time voluntary work, sharing through social media, but also coaching actively and supervising their training, small groups of urologists, especially in government hospital or public hospitals, and some friends on private hospitals. So I have done a lot of workshops, and I am still doing them in Morocco, but also in Africa, Senegal, Johannesburg, Douala, La Cameroon, in Tunisia, and so on. So this is just to tell you that most of the ideas and tips and tricks that I will show you are teamwork. So these are ideas gathered through and by interacting and brainstorming with many friends and colleagues. So why are we looking for hacks, tips and tricks and cheap solutions? You know, developed countries had an organized and trusted system with availability of everything, almost everything. However, this is not true for all the people all the time. So things are not available because there is lack of money, there is mostly poor organization, and also mostly administrative hassle and slow motion of administration. So what do we do to have these hacks and cheap alternative? We have to be ingenious, open-minded. We have to optimize what we have in hand. And also, especially, don't forget that cheap resources aren't just objects or devices. So we can have an idea, we can optimize what we have at hand and have a good organization and communication. Also, don't reinvent the wheel. Now we have most of the techniques and variation and tips and tricks are on the net freely, mostly on YouTube and social media. Also, we have to use things in unconventional way, to think out of the box, but we have to do it in intelligent way, not to skip an important step in the technique to gain time. Also, we have to share what we discover, what the tips that we have. We have to teach and coach and share our resources. And by sharing, mostly we receive and we learn more. And also we have to be humble and to be open-minded and to listen to the other. Sometimes someone less expert than you might give you an idea, or a nurse or And also we have to do this creativity. I think all human beings have this creativity. Like, for example, in our daily life, we might use a knife as a screwdriver. We just have to use this creativity in our work. But not only humans, also animals. Here is a bird fishing with small bread. Also, killer hunting birds with fish. Also, an otter opening clamfish by stone on her belly. So I will try to give you some examples in our practice, in our experience. But also, practice makes perfect. By thinking innovation and share it with people, you will do more creativity and more research. So you know very well, necessity is the mother of all invention. So just an idea, it is the cheapest way of innovation. We have to learn from history. So mostly, you know, the first steps are percutaneous renal surgery, reported in 1941. Ripper and Brown had described a nephroscopy through surgical nephrostomy tract previously done already in 1941 using a cystoscope, and also the great work of Frenstrom and Johansson, who had pushed forward PCNL by using just a forceps through a nephrostomy tract. So what can we learn from history? So both these people didn't have no technology or special equipment. It was not NASA. They just had an idea. This is creative thinking. And also they have the idea and they had the courage to use their idea. They weren't ashamed. And they had used their equipment in a different indication. So they had maximized what they had available. And also they had shared their idea by publishing the article. So if we just follow this few or couple of rules, we can do like them, and we can have a lot of tips and tricks and being creative. And nowadays, we have a great opportunity by using social media, and I will give you an example. So I was helping friend doing rigid ureteroscopy. Suddenly, the ballistic probe broke, and we didn't have a spare. We cannot do soldering or welding. So what we have to do? We have to stop the procedure, or we have to find another way. So I was lucky. Just in the entering the operating room, they were doing some metal work on some lockers, and there was this metallic rivet, and I thought this is similar to the tip or the proximal tip of this ballistic probe, and we have done it, and we have continued the procedure. And the beauty of it, so I just share it on LinkedIn, and few hours after, I have another idea. And you see here, my friend Heron had said that they were using bicycle spoke. So this is the beauty of social media. By just giving an idea, and I had received an idea back without paying anything. So when you have an idea, you always try to push it forward to find another extension of this idea. So how we begin a ballistic probe from scratch, how we have this shaft, what can we use as a ballistic probe for the ureteroscope? So we can use a stainless steel body guide wire, or even the hydrophilic guide wires, especially stiff hydrophilic guide wire. We can peel the plastic sheath and we can use the shaft, and we have done it and it worked. So now we have the shaft, we have the proximal tip, but we need this small rubber segment. It is mandatory to have the handle of the ballistic probe working. So we can have this small rubber seal from a Foley catheter. And it is working just fine. This is a probe totally handmade. So what is the cheapest safety guide wire insertion? So in percutaneous surgery, I always advise to put a safety guide wire. The most used tip is we use a small segment of the coil housing the guide wire. And here we see the dilation of the tracks. Then introduction of this segment, and we see the safety guide wire inserted. Of course, we use a small French 8 or 9 French housing coils. The 12 French will be difficult, so we have to do dilation to 2 French above. Another way to do it, through the Omplatz dilator beside the metallic rod, but we have to remove the dilator, then continued dilation beside the guide wire. Another way to do it, by doing a hole into a fascial dilator, introducing the safety guide wire, then the fascial dilator is pushed over the working guide wire. When we reach the pulocalyceal system, the guide wire is dislodged and it is coiled into the pelvicalyceal system. But we can use also an 8 or 10 French feeding tube or aspiration tube or a large WG stent pusher. But nowadays, mostly in percutaneous surgery, I use this tip that I took from the ureteral access sheet. So slit is performed on a ureteral catheter and the guide wire is inserted just through this part with slit. By pushing the dilator, the guide wire is dislodged. So here in the patient, introduction of this WG pusher, the guide wire is stored in its housing coil. So we do dilation over only the catheter without guide wire. So the dilation is parallel or beside the guide wire. Of course, we have to use a stiff WG pusher or ureteral catheter. So we do a one-step dilator, and at the end of the procedure, the guide wire is outside Omplatz sheet. Following the same idea, what is the cheapest way to insert a retrograde guide wire? We don't need the coaxial or double lumen catheter, just cystoscope. If we have 2 channels, we can put a guide wire through each channel. But even with 1 channel, after insertion of the first guide wire, then ureteral catheter is passed beside and the safety guide is passed beside the other guide wire. With the same thinking, we can use a segment of the housing coil housing the guide wire, or an 8 or 10 French aspiration tube. Let there be light. So I was about to do a PCNL with a friend, but our nephroscope was lacking this light adapter. We didn't have it. So what to do? We tried to take it from another scope, but impossible. It wasn't working. So we had this idea to take a small segment from a Foley catheter and to put it instead of the adapter. And it worked very well. We have the whole procedure was done like this. So how do we learn calyceal puncture? We cannot have virtual simulator, and also the biologic models are difficult to have in Morocco, especially on porcine kidney. So we had the idea to use a glove which is filled with saline, and we use the tip of the glove like the calyx. So it is inserted into a foam. However, this is a good model for puncture, not for dilation, but it has its limitation. It needs the C-arm and radiation exposure. So it limits the practice and to use it in a meeting room. So I was thinking for months how to do it with only light. And I was taking advices from friends, and I will show you how the availability of device give you the idea. So back in 2012, I was in a workshop in the university hospital in Marrakesh, and they had this retroprojector in the classroom. So one of the urologists suggested, this is a powerful light, you can use it. So the glove is filled with air, and we can do it by projection on the wall or just on a paper. Also, the absence of a device can push you toward another idea. So few weeks after I was in a private hospital, they didn't have this retroprojector. So we were searching for a source of light, and I had this idea to use the smartphone torch application. We can also shorten the fingers to have a more realistic or visible. We like hydronephrosis. So every time you have the idea, I showed you that you have to push it forward. And so if you are working and suddenly the endoscopic light source stop or is not available, what will you do? So you use this torch application of a smartphone, and you can do the procedure. Here is how we do it, and you see it is acceptable to do a cystoscopy and insertion of a ureteral catheter. And this is also, I will show you the interest of brainstorming and sharing idea. So I was 2 times in Dakar in 2017 and 2018, and I met a great man. His name is Dr. Graham Watson. He's doing volunteer work in Africa and Asia, and we were talking about if suddenly the equipment stopped, what would you do? So I told him this idea about other things that we had discussed. And if you know you need camera, you can use the smartphone and also the light. And few days after, I returned to Morocco and I received this email from him. He said, was it you, Mohammed, who said that you could use a phone to act as a light source? It worked. So he was able to do the whole procedure. He was in Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital in Banjul, the Gambia, with Dr. Abu Bakr Jah, and they done the whole procedure like this, the retrograde insertion and the whole supine PCNL. So what do we learn from this? So this is the benefit of brainstorming and sharing idea. Also, Dr. Graham, even with his age and his experience and is well known, and he had more experience than me, he has listened to what I said and he had heeded, and also when the occasion presented itself, he had used what he had learned. So this is a great way. And we can push the idea forward. If also you don't have a smartphone, you can use the operating room light, and it works for small WG removal or just cystoscopy or insertion of a retrograde insertion of ureteral catheter. And also discussing with Graham, he is now doing more and more ultrasound calyx sphincter, but how to control the tract dilation. So I told him that I was doing since 2004 mini PCNL for second or third tract using the rigid ureteroscope. So after insertion to guide wire, the rigid ureteroscope progresses in the retroperitoneum until reaching the calyceal stone, which is pushed into the renal pelvis and extracted by the first tract. So, and also in SIU Lisbon 2017, a winning award video from Dr. Arvind Shah from Nepal. He uses a transparent unplugged dilator with the rigid ureteroscope or small nephroscope, and the wall dilation is done under direct vision. So it is a very good idea. So we can mix those two ideas, even if we don't have a transparent unplugged dilator. Here is an 8 French or 7 French rigid ureteroscope inserted through the unplugged dilator, and we can follow the guide wire like this and do the dilation under direct vision. So a friend called me for a removal of a double G stent in a 10 years old boy with the rigid ureteroscope. His removal forceps has broken, and with the tip he cannot find the tip of the double G stent with the basket. So what is the solution? So on the spot we had the idea to take the membrane stillage of a ureteral catheter and to do it like a hook, to shape it like a hook, and this way we can remove the double G stent even from its body. So here on the glove model, and here on the patient, but you have to be aware and to control this tip, otherwise you might hurt or do injury to the mucosal ureteral mucosa. I think it is the best way to remove a double G stent, and we no longer use forceps for this task. Like I told you in my introduction, you have to be humble and listen to all the advices, even from nurse or from someone less expert than you. So this is one of the techniques that had changed my life on percutaneous renal surgery. So my first steps of PCNL were in 2097, and I had only the hydrolytic lithotrieter, and it was very difficult to remove all the small fragments, and also I didn't have all this experience. And my scrub nurse told me, you know, the nephroscope is hollow with the working channel, and it is similar to an aspiration cannula. So why not use it like this? So we have done it. The The suction tube is adapted to the nephroscope operating channel, and it is the best way to extract all the clots in the first introduction of the nephroscope. Small fragments less than 5 centimeters are extracted through the nephroscope operating channel. Larger ones are attracted through the implant sheath. And I think it is the best way for matrix stones. We can remove large matrix stones in few minutes. Can we take a recess time? So I want to talk to you about guitar. Do you know how this metal band or this rock band have their sound, distorted sound, fat distorted sound? They are using stone boxes. Here is the sound of a regular guitar. Distortion effect, and here with the distortion effect. And here with the distortion effect. So I look up some schematic on the net, and I took scavenged some parts from those economic bulbs, light bulb, and I put it in a sardine can. I have no previous experience on electronics. And the regular fuzz are from 100 to 150 or $200. And mine with scavenged part is less than $1. So why am I telling you this? We are urologists, not guitarists. So can we transpose this process to our electronic devices, camera, electrosurgery unit? So I look up on the net and I found the schematics of this electrosurgery unit. So we can do the same for people that cannot afford to have this. Also for camera, I told you about Bantuk in the introduction. So in 2018, Dr. John Lazarus from South Africa was a winner, and with his idea, wireless endoscopic camera that cost about $120 or $40. So he had used this platform that called the Raspberry, which cost Raspberry P0, it cost $27 or $26, and you can add the wireless component and the camera. So it costs less than 100 and about $120 or $40. We can do the same. We can have more idea. We can extend them. We also had one of the urologist group in public hospital I was helping had their hand ballistic handle broke, so they cannot afford to buy it. It was about the cheapest one was $1,500. So we made one less than $100 by a metal worker, and it is working very fine. Why not do the same by dissecting this ballistic generator, and I'm sure that it will be easy to reproduce. I was helping friend doing PCNL in this large stone staghorn, and we had this remaining stone in the upper calyx. We try to remove it by suction or by irrigation, and no way. So we needed a basket, but we didn't have one. Nitronal basket. We didn't have a flexible nephroscope, and we didn't want to do another percutaneous access to push the stone with the needle or something like this. So we had this floppy hydrophilic guide wire, and we had the idea to weave it as a basket. So it was inserted through a WG pusher through the nephroscope, but we cannot extract it through the nephroscope. So the whole nephroscope is moved with the basket. Here in the patient, insertion, progression until reach the calyx, and we were lucky. The stone was catched by this makeshift basket. And it was extracted. So, like I told you, we have to push the idea forward. So we began to think how to do it. Can we use another thing or material existing in the operating room? Monofilament suture, a nylon, polypropylene, something like this, fishing line. So we tried with the nylon basket. So a basket is weaved from a nylon suture 2-0. This is coaxial WG pusher. So the suture was inserted into it, and by moving the inner part, the basket can be opened or closed. And here in our glove model, and it worked just fine. We have done it in few patients, but this is just for the people that we cannot use it regularly, but we can make it better. So this is through the nephroscope, but it is very large for the rigid ureteroscope. Can we do it? So can we use a less than 3 French ureteral catheter, or use it with the guide wire? But how to fix it with the guide wire? So we took this PTFO guide wire, and to fix it, we have to break between the loops of the outer coating of the guide wire, and here it is. We can move it through the rigid ureteroscope, and the rigid ureteroscope is used as of course it is backloaded through the rigid ureteroscope, and the outer sheet of the basket will be the ureteroscope. Here in our glove model, exploration, the stones are found, then with the basket. So the basket is closed by fixing the stone against the tip of the rigid ureteroscope. We can use the same thing through the flexible nephroscope or cystoscope. In our glove model, and if we can do a smaller knot, we can use it also through the flexible ureteroscope. So if you have an idea, please send it to me through my email. So the fishing lines are mostly nylon, so we can do the same with fishing lines. So if we look for an alternative to guide wire, what can we use as a guide wire? So a friend had asked his secretary to buy him a fishing line to train for weaving basket, like I showed you. But she brought a very large diameter fishing line, about 8 millimeter. And so he called me and he said that he found an alternative to guide wire. So here is the fishing line. The guide wire inserted over this fishing line. But it is not, it is radiolucent. We can use it as safety guide wire, through and through guide wire. Also, sometimes we use a long vascular dilation balloon, longer than our guide wires, and we use it for this. So we can also make a three-prong forceps from a double G pusher. Its tip is opened to 3 pieces. And the outer sheet is made from the coil housing the guide wire, which is 12 French, and the double G pusher is 8 French. So the forceps and the outer sheet is shaped like with the handle. Here with the handle like a real 3-pronged forceps, and here in the attracting stone. So I will show you a magic trick. We have G-tip guide wire and we want to insert it through the needle or through the catheter, but we need both hands to do it. And even with the introducer, we still need both hands. So is it possible to do it single-handed and without the introducer? Here is the magical part. So with just one hand, the guide wire is straightened and inserted. So how we do it? So by attracting over the guide wire, we attract over the inner core, and the outer coils of the guide wire are made straight by fixing them between index and finger. With one hand, the other fingers do the attraction, and the guide wire is made straight like this. So we have this large outflow during PCNL, and we don't have a spare rubber seal. So what will you do? So we had a very bad vision. So we took the rubber head of syringe bag, of syringe piston, and we took small fragment or patch, and we patch our rubber seal, and it worked just fine. No more outflow. Alternatively, we can use the whole rubber head of syringe, especially in large nephroscope. This is 20 milliliter syringe, and now with the friend in the public hospital, he is always using this tip. Also, in a flexible, we don't have those fancy ureteroscope seal, and they are expensive, about $20 to $30. So we take the injection port of serum bag. So the basket is backloaded over the puncturing needle. So now we don't have no outflow. Also, the movement of the basket are limited, so it gives some protection to the movement of the basket or the laser fiber. So if we don't have an adapter of ureteral catheter to drainage bag, we can insert it directly over the puncturing needle into the last end of the Foley catheter. So we have just one bag for both catheter. Alternatively, we can use the injection port of serum bag. Also, at the end of PCNL, we can remove this soft rubber valve, and it fits just fine over the ureteral catheter and the drainage bag. I need an endoscopic electrode. So I was doing a workshop in a patient with the UPGO, and we wanted to do an endopuloplasty, which is an endopulotomy and transversal suture through the unique percutaneous tract. But we have this troubled vision, and the exploration of the parenchymal tunnel found these active bleedings. So we decided to do a parenchymal tunnel cauterization, just to show for the participant of the workshop that it is feasible. We could have just inserted the amplitude and weight. So we didn't have an endoscopic electrode. So what to do? So we have this ureteral catheter with steel membrane sealant, and also with this large brass knob. And by applying the handle of the electrocauteris unit to the sealant, we can do cauterization. So here the endoscopic view, and especially with monopolar cauterization, you have just to touch nicely, not without pushing, without much pressure. So this is before the coagulation and cauterization, and at the end of the procedure, we have a nice view. we use this ureteral catheter to do incision in the bladder neck here. Also retrograde endopulotomy or antegrade endopulotomy, coagulation during an endopulotomy. Sometimes even the ureteral catheter that we have don't have steel membrane steelate. So what is the alternative? We have this bleeding and we do a coagulation. We can use a basket with small tip to do cauterization. Through the flexible, we cannot insert, through the flexible ureteroscope, we cannot insert ureteral catheter. So to do coagulation or incision, a small peeling of the tip of hydrophilic guide wire. So here on this endoscopic view, this is a small retrograde endopulotomy with the flexible uteroscope using a guide wire as electrode. Here's small cauterization. One of the tips and hacks for optimization of what we have at hand is equipment multi-use. So I already told you about using the rigid ureteroscope as a second or third tract. And we have a progression in the retroperitoneum here without any protection. So now we are using a drinking straw as access sheet for mini PCNL with the rigid ureteroscope. So this is drinking straw of 13 or 14 French. It is inserted over a dilator and inserted over a guide wire. Introduction of the rigid ureteroscope. And here extraction of small stones. So this is an alternative if you are doing PCNL, you don't have a small nephroscope and you cannot afford to have one. So for regular access, we use the regular nephroscope, 20 French nephroscope, and for smaller one, we are doing this mini PCNL with the rigid ureteroscope. So here, using the nephroscope from undergrad PCNL for this large stones of the kidney and the ureter, and also from below with the retrograde ureteroscopy. Here we have a complication with the stone migration in the pleura, and it was used as a thoracoscope and extraction of the stone. Here is the lung and here is the pleura. Also, we have done a small series of retrovesical hydrated cyst and renal hydrated cyst, also with the nephroscope, and the puncture through the bladder and the extraction of the hydrated material. Here we had used the nephroscope to do retroperitoneoscopy, nephrolysis, and percutaneous nephropexy. And also we had used it as laparoscope, bladder lithotracer, for retroperitoneal abscess, as colonoscope in 2 or 3 cases during percutaneous colon injury. So George Bernard Shaw has said that progress is impossible without change. And if we cannot change our mind, we cannot progress, and we cannot change anything. So my conclusion is to provide a non-stressful supervised teaching and learning for people, and for each one of us have to have a large knowledge of techniques and tips and tricks for economic use of equipment to overcome difficult situation. We have to cultivate these idea, tips and tricks, and especially we have to share them, and we have to do or build and maintain a network of people we can question about support, and we have to share this idea. We have the opportunity to have social media. And I conclude by quoting Bob Marley from he said, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." And I thank you. We have more tips and tricks in my YouTube channel, and here is my email. So thank you very much.